Hey, good morning. So it's coffee time here in Encinitas, and I'm thinking about some musings. I'm thinking about some notions about embodiment because for the past 25 years or so, I've been teaching in the somatic psychology area, and I want to just share a few thoughts with you and interests that I have today. This was initiated in part because I'll be talking later today about the notion of use of sensation and the use of sensation for our end of trauma course members. I'll do a webinar on that for them. And the interoception, or the use of sensation, is what is most is a really interesting topic. And there are a few ideas out there that organic intelligence and I are looking to converse about. Just to say, before I start fully, this will be the stream. There was supposed to be a scheduled stream, so some people will be joining us later. Welcome, and we will also have more information on what we're doing in organic intelligence, and also the places that I'll be appearing. We'll be looking at. I was on this really lovely trauma and embodiment summit in these last days, and then also I'll be in another embodiment conference upcoming, and we'll see if I can get you the link to that as well. Body. There we go. So, and I'll be there, and I think there'll be close to 20,000 people that are going to be showing up there. So, I hope you'll be able to join us with that. So, the topic of embodiment is quite hot right now, and here is the link that I'll put in for the embodiment conference, and it's popular because we are, I think, oops. In the age of our growth as a species and the exploration of therapy in particular and what's healing, realizing that the body plays such an important part, like our physical sensation world is such a huge part of how we live and exist. And so the main thing that I wanted to share, some of the main things that I wanted to share is this: that mostly there is the notion that embodiment means a kind of consciousness of body sensation, and there is research that uh, there is research on interoceptive awareness skills for emotion regulation, and others. But in my work in organic intelligence, we really have a different model of working. Um, and uh, and we have a different model because what I realized over many years was that the awareness of sensation, interoception, is not necessarily going to be super organizing. That is, it's not always going to be really helpful. And in fact, sometimes it will be quite unhelpful. So there is the question then, like, oh, when is sensation awareness helpful? When is it not helpful? And for this, we have to look at the whole notion of how our biology works. And in particular, in terms of interoception, I was part of some of the early investigations on interoception through the Osher Center in San Francisco, and the groups of experts. I was part of the groups of experts that were gathered who had been working in sensation for quite some time. And the sensation work, really arose through in the West and in North America in particular. It arose through the interface with groups of who were doing meditation. Certainly, Zen practice that was brought over early on, and then other traditions of Vipassana, and as well other traditions that formed a basis and formed a real foundation for an alternative approach to healing that we found on the West Coast in this human potential movement, which found its epicenter at Esalen Institute. And that at Esalen and others, then the notion of body awareness, the intentional healing through the body through the work of Milton Traeger and Ida Rolf and many others, and remember that Esalen Institute also was an important hub for Gestalt work, and in Gestalt work in particular, it was certainly Fritz Perls, but also Dr. Claudio Naranjo, very well-respected Chilean psychiatrist, who then went on to bring the Enneagram to North America. But in all of these, then, in the Gestalt work, in the sensation work, and in the work also of somatic awareness, Charlotte Selber was a key in these, and was brought also to Esalen, I believe, in that period of the development of the human potential movement, and in that area was then also a little known and still a little known tradition called the Gurdjieff work, and the Gurdjieff work at that time was really incorporated in the human potential movement. So Claudio Naranjo's explication of the Enneagram and included ways that included the understanding of the Enneagram that really came from the Gurdjieff work. And if you read in the tradition of somatic work, like in somatic experiencing, it arose then out of what I call the Olney school. Dick Olney. Olney has a website, Alive and Real. And that Alive and Real, I'll pop that link up for you. Alrighty, here is the link. I'll put in the chat section. So Dick Olney then created this growth and development program that Peter Levine and others were a part of, and really then evolved into the work of somatic awareness, somatic experiencing, and in that early foundation, then you see these traditions being expressed, traditions that are involving the Gestalt work, and on that Alive and Real website, there are many transcripts of Dick Olney's work, and in that transcript work, you'll see, and Dick Olney was saying, and Fritz Perls would call this movement back and forth. He would call that oscillation, right? Which is the term that we use in organic intelligence. There is this oscillation that is at the heart of the way that we understand the human biology, and then also bioenergetics and the work of Dr. Austin in imagery, and then in the understanding also of the grounding in sensory awareness, and also in the Gurdjieff work. Olney talks in the work that you'll see there at Alive and Real. He'll talk about Gurdjieff as if it's an everyday thing, as if everybody knows about it. So in that area, in that region, then everybody knew about their Gurdjieff work in part. That includes, by the way, others who are important in the organic intelligence tradition, which would include Milton Erickson. Milton Erickson, in the foreword to Sidney Rosen's book, My Voice Will Go With You, is a list, in a way, a reflection on some of the books that Erickson had on his bookshelf, and they included books by Gurdjieff. the impact of this Gurdjieff work and the role of sensation awareness in the Gurdjieff work is really key. And in fact, Gurdjieff said of the awareness practice. Let me see if I have a quote here for you on that. I'll get. Here we go. Yes, Gurdjieff said this. Gurdjieff said, "It is only by grounding our awareness in the living sensation of our bodies that the I am, our real presence, can awaken. It is only by grounding our awareness in the living sensation of our bodies that the I am, our real presence, can awaken." And in other places, he says, that the work that is held in that present tense of the body is energy that then is renewed and restored. It's not just used up; it is actually renewed and restored in that fashion. So this we understand that the body sensation is key, and this is why I departed really from the somatic experiencing approach and the whole notion of the fundamental use of interoception, which is that sometimes, and in several cases, in some percentage of the cases, body awareness and the use of body awareness can be very helpful and grounding and so on. And in other cases, it is radically disorganizing and disorienting. And so in organic intelligence, I began to work and to discover what are the key differences? What are why is it that this sensation awareness that for many of us we've practiced for years and years is when I was working certainly on an ongoing basis in the somatic experiencing world and in the Zen world, the Zen practice that would be a part of my Aikido training, also in the Gurdjieff work and other traditions, we're using that body sensation. It was body sensation all the time, just body sensation, and really, there is a time for the use of that, and so I was practiced in that, and then saw also where body sensation would be so disorganizing to people. So I began to use, instead of an inner awareness, I began to advocate for orientation. That is getting the attention outside, because that orientation process, that connecting to the environment through the senses, actually provided so much more stability and really grounding in the here and now. So and began to develop and understand that it's not discharge, for instance, that's so key, but began to apply the notions from complexity science into the world of therapy and treatment and healing, in order to find out what is the key to healing. And the key to healing is in the understanding of oscillation. Oscillation is the key to understanding the way that our systems sync up. And bioenergetics as an influence into, say, SE, and the whole notion of discharge became very very popular. So in the early days, it would be, it's the discharge that creates the reorganization of the nervous system. You'd hear in Waking the Tiger, for instance, but it didn't, and it doesn't. That is, there is a way that we have to find the ideal intensity threshold. These days, the window of tolerance is talked about, like figuring out the window of tolerance. But all of this puts the cart before the horse. And this is really the key in OI, is that the cart is before the horse. That is, we continue to think that this is something that I do, that this is something that I can do. I need to work within my window of tolerance, as if I need to maintain that, as if that's my job as a human being. But all that will do, all I can do, is feel better And that's a good thing. Systems that are all interrelating. And so all of those subsystems then are complexly interrelated. Like the heart's pacemaker, the sinoatrial node, is connected to the vagus system. The vagal brake comes on. When we breathe out, the vagal brake comes on. When we breathe in, the brake comes off. And that heart rate increases and decreases with each respiration, unless it doesn't. So we cannot of ourselves self-organize. We can't self-organize. We ought to organize, and what we can find are the conditions in which our biology can be self-organizing or auto-organizing. Biological organization is the name of the game. And so in this, then we look at the understandings that interoception then, and this is an article that again I'll type in for you. This is the article that I think is really interoception, how we understand our body's inner sensations. And this is an article that does a review, and it does a review of scientists that are doing research in this area, including this understanding that interoception is really a result. Again, understanding the brain's function is key. In organic intelligence, we have initiated and supported the understanding and the use of orientation in our work of stabilization. Orientation as connecting to the environment through the senses, any of the five senses, all of the five senses, because that mapping is really key. And the mapping is key because the brain wants to map us looking forward. It's not even so much about the coming into the present moment. The brain is trying to make predictions about what's needed for adaptation. So it's taking the current information and matching it up with past experience in order to make predictions so that it is ready for and already starting any changes of adaptation that are needed in terms of temperature and pH and engagement with the environment. The brain is trying to make more and more apt hypotheses about the moment-to-moment micro changes that may be needed so it's ready. And if the biology is better at making predictions about what's coming, then we are better able to live in an adaptive fashion, right? If temperature changes outside suddenly, here in Encinitas, we're coastal San Diego County. And there's a phenomena called June gloom. And so with June gloom, it's the marine layer coming in off the Pacific Ocean, and then it's overcast, often for days at a time. There's June gloom, there's May gray, and it had been one of those kinds of summers, and it was really overcast for the whole time and hadn't seen the sun. So packed up the bikes and the tent and headed east, because east is warmer weather. The marine layer only extends a certain distance. And so went to the Anza-Borrega Desert, which is this incredible national park there, and got there in the later part of the just at sunset, really, and had a beautiful sunset ride through the slot canyons and so on, and set up the tent and created the fire and meal, the whole thing, and then turned in this beautiful, cool environment where it had been clear. Blue skies, just clear blue skies, exactly what we were looking for. And then the next morning came, and early, the sunrise came up, and it was hot. It was really, really hot, and the tent became like an oven. And was scattered out of the tent, realizing, oh my gosh, it's like 100 degrees here already in the morning. It's going to head up to like 120, and quickly packed up threw everything in the back of the truck and jumped into the air conditioning, and then drove to the mountains where it was going to be clear and cool at the same time. But our systems then were quickly adapting. We had cognitively skipped a groove on the prediction of the temperature, but our bodies were adapting rapidly. If your system is in a situation like that, you're in a tent, which is like an oven in the Anza-Borrego Desert, and the system is slow to pick up that information, you could get heat stroke in a hurry in that environment. Like sweat needs to come on, right? And immediate action needs to be taken. And if the brain is able to make those predictions, we have survivability. That selective advantage really works for us. So the brain is making these predictions, and then those predictions show up as body sensation. And this is key for emotion, of course. The interoception is a reflection. The interoception is not necessarily ways of getting that, like body sensation is not necessarily ways of sussing out what's going on. Emotionally, it can be. So, like this notion of felt sense from focusing and Eugene Gendlin, that ability to access insight is really key. And I have a feeling, but that feeling is an integration. Felt sense is an integration of everything, of the emotion, of the sensation, of the imaginal. It's this integrated process, and that's what we train for in organic intelligence. But it is predicated on really the integration of the body experience. Currently, there is really a fallacy in the world of sensation work, which is like, we've seen that, for instance, interoception is impaired for people who have like emotional regulation issues or differentiation issues. So they think, because the sensation awareness is less available, what we should do is create more practice of sensation awareness. That's putting the cart before the horse, because the lack of differentiation, the lack of sensation awareness is due primarily to the imposition of this dorsal vagal system of freezy business, of freeze on the system, and then decreases sensation awareness, right? That there is an allocation of resources that are about allostatic, homeostatic process, and then the system then shuts down unnecessary things like sensation awareness, like emotional processing. All of this is shut down, and there is a decrease because of freeze, because of the dorsal vagal system. There's a decrease of interrelationship of sensation and emotion and movement, all of these things that create extra intensity, extra feedback, extra processing for the biology. So there is a shutdown of those extra connections, because those extra connections demand processing, demand greater bandwidth. What we do in OI is we have discovered how to create that extra bandwidth, so that then the ability of the system to process the information increases, and so that the system then doesn't have to create the disconnect in order to keep up with the processing. Okay? We create extra bandwidth, which is not something that I can do. It is something that the biology does naturally in its autoregulatory capacity. And so for that, we train professionals, we train people to recognize when a person is exhibiting signs of greater organization, greater support for a system growing its bandwidth. That is, when it is creating, we are helping create the conditions and the feedback with an individual that creates the stability that then guides the biology to do just enough processing in order to to be able to guide the processing into greater bandwidth so that then the system doesn't have to disconnect. The result of that, of not having to disconnect, is then to be able to connect and show up as interoception, to show up as sensation awareness, to show up as the ability to have felt sense. The ability to have the felt sense. So with less freeze, we have more interoception capacity. But you get that not by just looking at sensation all the time. You get that by feeding the system all of the channels of information that are meant to provide the biology with the experience of greater organization. This is our ISOMA framework. The I, image, sensation, orientation, meaning, and affect. All of these channels will be mostly sending signals of stay the same, stay stable, stay stuck. There will be some signals from any of these that say grow, expand, stabilize, and then be more resilient. And that's in image, sensation, orientation, meaning, or affect. So it's not sensation that's the key. It's not affect that's the key. It's not meaning that's the key. It's not even orientation, really, that's the key or image. It's the recognition of which of these channels has the key in the moment that will unlock the biology of self and auto-regulation, and to create the conditions in which that ideal intensity occurs. Other channels will be over intense or under intense, and then we'll just keep the system in the status quo. That's a biological imperative. What we have discovered here is that there is an ideal intensity threshold and an ideal and certain channels of experience that are expressing that information that would be self-organizing for the biology and set up the conditions for that auto-regulation. So yes, sensation awareness, maybe, right? Maybe not sensation awareness, maybe orientation, maybe affect, maybe the image channel. Each of these channels is going to bring information that would set up the system for auto-regulation. And that's why that's why people are doing the human empowerment and resiliency training. I hope you'll think about training some with us and getting some real information about how the biology works and how the biology is auto-healing, and that's organic intelligence. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for also the support for the tech support. We'll line out our process here shortly and get more adept in our tech. This is a home event, right? I'm right here in the house, so this is a family gathering that we have here. Happy Ron, Robert, and others. Happy to see you here, and welcome. Be in touch if you want to reach out to us. We have the End of Trauma course, and the email there is effective for reaching us, and that is EOTC, and I'm writing it in here, at organicintelligence.org. Feel free to reach out for us here. If you want more information, we have a free clinical mindfulness course. If you go to organicintelligence.org, that free clinical mindfulness course looks at the intersection between mindfulness, which is a cornerstone for us, and then the healing process and understanding from organic intelligence, and various professions like psychotherapy and others. So thank you for joining us, and I'll look forward to meeting with you next week as well. We'll work here at the same time. I'll join you for coffee. And happy to see plans for an OI party coming up. That sounds really good. All right. Thanks for, hey, Sherry, thanks for being a part of this. And I'll look forward to seeing you here at the house as well. Okay. Take care, y'all.